Hey everyone, Mark and Steve here.
Before we get started today, we want to let you know about Dare to Connect, our new online interactive video platform.
For less than the cost of a therapy session, you and your spouse get live access to both of us 3 times a week.
Each 30-minute live group support session provides interactive mentoring and healing for addicts, spouses, and couples.
If you're loving our podcast and our unique style of bringing you recovery, you're going to love Dare to Connect.
To learn more, go to daretoconnectnow.com. We're looking forward to seeing and working with you. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast.
Hey everybody, Mark and Steve on the PBSC podcast. So we had a listener reach out to us with a very lengthy, super raw, authentic, awesome comment.
Yeah.
And when Steve and I read it, it was so classic, so absolutely textbook classic that we thought we have got to read this on the PBSC program, and we've got to
The whole thing,
because you've got to hear the whole thing, everybody. Because it's so classic, addict, not in real full recovery, spouse, betrayal trauma, just the whole dynamics of this. So Steve's going to read the whole thing. And then when we're done, there is no possible way we're going to address all the stuff in here. We're going to forewarn you. Yeah. But we will try to hit some really important highlights when Steve's done reading it. And we'll be as raw and real as we can. But here we go.
Yeah.
Steve, take it away.
Okay. So yeah, like Mark said, we this is one of those topics that we, that we cover, in a really interactive way on our program, Dare to Connect. And this actually came up today, one among many topics that we kind of interacted with subscribers on there. And we would love to be doing that with you. But yeah, we do want to give some at least some brief advice and a starting point for some of this. So, and we do want to read the whole thing because that's going to help. I guarantee wherever you're at in recovery, every couple on some level can relate to this. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, hi, I have a question for the podcast. My husband had an affair. D-Day was over 2 years ago, meaning disclosure day for those who haven't heard about that. Usually that's just referring to, that when I first found out about the addiction.
When it all came out.
Yep. Not long ago, I found out he was still having the affair. He's broken things off numerous times and told me numerous times he's done for real this time. He talks about helping me feel safe, gave me limited access to his phone briefly a couple of times, but then got upset when I was looking at certain female texts, claiming it was invading that woman's privacy for me to see what she'd said. He says he wants to honor their confidentiality with him. I know he deletes the affair accomplices' text, which is the reason why I wanted accountability software, and he refused. So like accountability software on his devices. He did show me that he deleted the apps that previously manipulated his GPS location. So he had previously had something on there that was, disrupting any sort of like kind of tracking his movements on his phone. He did show me that he deleted the apps that previously manipulated that. And now he refuses access to his device. Now he refuses access to his devices by me. I've been asking him for weeks to reinstall GPS locator apps, and he hasn't. He's still been staying out during overnight hours until the auspices of finishing a handyman project that he's in charge of and can easily do during the day, or under the auspices, sorry. He still gets defensive with questions at times. I told him to let me know immediately if she reaches out to him, and that I want us to get together as a couple to decide on a text for him to send to her that lets her know it's over and she's cut off. But it's been 3 weeks with nothing from him about contact from her. I know she didn't give up that easily. I think he's still in contact with her. So basically, I have no signs that show me he has acknowledged his weaknesses and vices. and no assurances with guardrails being put in place that provide me with a sense of safety. I also haven't been given full disclosure, and there's still dishonesty going on that I can sense. My only glimmer of hope is that he's been meeting with 3 guys weekly on spiritual work to deal with the roots of stuff. But then he wants sex every day. He says he wants me to make love. He doesn't want it when I'm not in the mood. He says he wants me to want him. He says he feels rejected a lot because I don't express eager desire for him. He seems to want this lovely, dovey, super affectionate wife right now who can't keep her hands off him and wants to make passionate love. How can he expect me? So here's the question, or the first of 2 questions. How can he expect me to want to make love to him at all when I haven't been provided any reassurances in his attitude and actions that things are really over this time with her and nothing has been put in place to help rebuild trust? How can I, quote unquote, switch on to being in a highly affectionate, desirous mood when he's still doing things that hurt me and cause me to be so gun shy? There have been times in the past when he said that I'm not meeting his needs. Then he doesn't feel motivated to meet mine. He turns it around on me like I need to make the first move and just muster up the desirous feelings that are needed to meet his love language, need of physical touch and frequent lovemaking. And then here's a second kind of question component. I'm not sure how to handle this. He gets triggered so easily right now in any form of rejection. So if I tell him I don't feel comfortable making love until certain things are in place that show faithfulness and transparency, he will just interpret that as punishment and rejection, then either lash out with divorce threats or shut down. Am I expecting too much too soon?
Wow.
A lot there.
That was huge, right?
Yeah.
And thank you for the patience of the listeners for listening to that whole thing.
Absolutely.
But that is just cram-packed of all sorts of issues that oh my gosh, like an all-day workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it does bring up a lot of things. And obviously not everyone who listens to this program is dealing with a physical affair, right? But everybody who listens to this program is dealing, I'm pretty much positive, on some level with some sort of betrayal, right? On the physically intimate, emotional spectrum.
Yep.
And so whether it's an affair, whether it's a compulsive pornography issue, whether, whatever it is, the same dynamics of betrayal and building trust, which are the issues here, right, are at play. And so that's why we wanted to read this, because you don't have to. Sometimes I work with guys, for example, who oftentimes will operate under the conception, or even wives for a different set of reasons, that either she should be less angry or what I'm doing is not as bad because, well, it's not like I'm having an affair, right? It's not like I'm going out and, doing those bad of things. Point number one is that a lot of people, it eventually ends up there for a lot of people because this is a progressively addictive and destructive disease we're dealing with. But the other piece to that is even though it may not be a full-on affair, it doesn't have to be for these same variables to be at play. So if you've never dealt on any level with trust or betrayal, this may not be the right podcast. But I'm pretty confident in saying that most of us can relate to this in some respect. So we wanted to try and jump in and cover this as well.
So if we jump into this, so I'm gonna take the observation of the addict here.
Sure.
And I'm gonna do this from my own addiction years, my own addiction decades. Everything I hear her expressing tells me that there's a guy who is not in recovery. His willingness is very weak, if there at all. And what you see here, point after point after point that she asks for, that I think is very real. I didn't hear anything unreasonable about her requests. Absolutely. Requests for full information, requests to know, right, what you're up to with regard to, very things that have been very vulnerable and, suspicious in the past, requests for transparency and authenticity. Simple requests for, what he's willing to do for his own recovery. Just lots of things that are very, very reasonable on her part. And what do I hear? Resistance from him. Or, continuing to cover up. It's what I call selective disclosure. The buffet approach to recovery. I like that particular dish, but I don't like those vegetables. No, I'll have some of that over there, but no, not those 4 things. He's very much, it appears, to be in that place.
Yeah.
And so this, if this guy happens to listen at some point, or if there's guys out there that are like this, where you're kind of going through the motions, maybe barely, you're trying to placate your wife or partner, you're trying to do enough to get her off your back, you're trying to check the boxes. What I also hear with this guy is he's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Sure.
He's not in the place to do the hard work of coming out of this addiction. So he's just trying to find ways to be able to hold on to it while also, quote, fixing his marriage.
Yeah.
Or in his case, even including his wife as part of his addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say something that's going to seem, I don't mean to be too blunt or disrespectful, but I'm going to put myself under the bus on this. So in my early recovery, what I did was I just used my wife to replace my addiction outlet. So what does that mean? I stopped looking at porn on a daily basis. And then I just started trying to manipulate or demand that we have sex every day.
Mm-hmm.
So all I did was just replace the porn with her. I wasn't in recovery. Yeah. Was I not looking? I wasn't looking at porn. And some guys will say, well, yeah, I'm sober. Well, wait, you're demanding sex every day with your wife. And is that healthy? Is that reasonable? I'm not here to say, what kind of timing couples should have or how often or how not. That's not my point. My point is I wasn't in full, authentic, healthy recovery. And all I did was substituted my wife into the place of pornography so I could keep acting out.
So there's not an actual reduction in the addiction. It's just
a different form,
a cross addiction, if you will, right?
It changed my drug. I went from heroin to cocaine.
Sure.
And my wife was my cocaine.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear in her description.
Yeah.
So there's so much going on with this. Whew.
Oh yeah. There really is a lot. And, we've talked on this program before about a concept called the drama triangle. And, we won't get into that today, but there's a lot of kind of drawing on that and some of the roles that we take on in relationships in which we become manipulative in different ways. There's a lot of, according to what this wife is saying, there's a lot of victimization going on the part of the addict. That needs
the addict's playing the victim very much.
Right. There's very much, anytime we engage with different elements of the drama triangle, of which there are three, the bully, right, the victim and the hero, any of those roles when taken on in a manipulative way, among other things, is always that the subversive component or a subversive component is to try and co-opt and transfer emotional ownership of things that we can't or ought not to. Right. And there's a lot of subtlety in what's going on here and how this wife is feeling. And again, we don't know this. We don't know the addict side of this, but operating from what we're hearing here, one of the underlying messages that I'm picking up in this, as a guy who's worked with many of these guys before, and myself, obviously, is that he is subtly, implicitly implying that it's your job to fix this. Right? It's your responsibility to make this better. You're the obstacle, right? You're the thing that's getting in the way or causing issues. You're the one who is, if you would just get out of the way or be more amenable, right? Or more open to sex or, whatever it was, then our problems would stop, right? If you'd quit tracking me or if you'd quit doing any of those things, then we'd be better off.
Mm-hmm, right. And when you hear him say things like, when you won't have sex with me every day, I'm rejected. Yes. You're using it as a punishment, which is keeping me stuck. If you would just cooperate, right? Oh man, when he said, I need you to, I want you to want me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to just have sex with you every day. I want you to be this mad, passionate, pursuing me wife that says, I want you, I have to have you. Yeah. And if you'll do that, and that's the kind of sex we'll have, I'll be better. Mm-hmm. This problem will be solved.
Yes. Absolutely. And sadly, it's easy to buy into this kind of thinking, and it's easy to get, when all of us, when we're in our relationships, and Mark and I really do empathize with the spouse because, for many of us, we don't have many examples of what a healthy marriage looks like, or, on these levels, oftentimes are lacking input from sources that can help keep us out of that crazy making. And it's easy to start to kind of buy into the insanity of what's being portrayed or suggested or talked about, day after day after day after day.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, right, any relationship functions on the following principle. I am solely responsible for the actions that I take or choose not to take. It is nobody else's job, nor can they, even if they wanted to take that on. As an addict, what I do with my genitalia is my problem. That's it. It isn't my wife's obligation. It's not my affair partner's obligation. It's not anyone else's job to manage that, because only I can take responsibility for that in my own work and in my own recovery and my own spiritual healing and emotional healing and everything else that goes on with that. As long as we are continuing to look for tools or external things, we talk about this in 12 step oftentimes, convinced that the next fix would save us, we were really losing our lives, is the phrase from popular 12 step literature.
Right. And, if you look at that, if I look back, for example, on my years where I was very much in the place that this guy is in, at least the way his wife's describing him,
mm-hmm.
if I really ask myself, why did I take these, what I see now as kind of ridiculous positions, always putting the responsibility off on her, always saying that these circumstances will fix it. You won't do this, so this is the case. The reason I did that is because I wasn't ready or willing to do two things. One was to let go of this favorite place of soothing and escape and avoidance and pleasure that was my go-to place whenever life got a little bit difficult. I wasn't ready to give that up.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is I wasn't ready to do the hard work that it was going to take.
Yes.
It's like, nope. So therefore, it's got to be all these other things and all of these other reasons, and it's got to be all on you. Because I'm not willing to start to face this. The other thing I wasn't willing to face was start to face my own crap.
Sure.
Now she says, well, I am facing my own crap. I'm meeting with 3 guys to talk about spiritual issues and even including my childhood stuff. And you and I looked at that. So you were like, okay, are these 3 guys that you met, under a bridge, or are you guys
mm-hmm.
sort of hanging out at the grocery store? I mean, you're just like, wow, this is your version of doing the hard work.
Yes.
This is stuff that I was doing back in my deep addiction days. Crazy stuff.
Absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why, just kind of as an aside, it's one of the reasons why 12-step programs or other support groups, they are an important part of a recovery program. They cannot be the sole source.
No.
They cannot be. Because addicts, for example, helping addicts or partners helping partners, there's a lot of value that simply can't be compensated for in other ways that is brought to the table that way. But focusing on any one group like that really leaves you vulnerable to myopic thinking.
Right.
And if you've got a group of 4 addicts who are all in a bad place in recovery or mediocre recovery, then you get a real groupthink dynamic going on that is not going to be healthy.
Well, and the thing that's a little disturbing about it, and again, we don't know the addict side. Please, everyone listening to us, we're not trying to be, see all, know all with this, just based on what she's saying. I recognize this when he says he's meeting with 3 guys to do the spiritual work.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did that in the early days. Mm-hmm. And I think it was 4 guys, and we met over at our church on a weekly basis to do our spiritual work. We were all porn addicts. Mm-hmm. And we banded together to do our spiritual work.
Yeah.
We didn't know we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Sure.
We weren't qualified to do that. Yeah. We didn't know where we were coming from. Now, was it a good effort? Was it at least a step in the right direction? It was. It showed some intent, but it was wholly inadequate. And by the way, it lasted for about, I don't remember, what was it, 60 days that we tried it. And then it just sort of petered out, and I went back deeper into addiction than before.
Yeah. Yeah, but recovery is about a balanced circle. You can't afford to get caught on any one thing. There's no silver bullet as in this process, as we oftentimes talk about. Probably the other thing that's missing the most here, and this is really important for guys to understand, and I know that this can be really foreign if you're an addict early on in this process. We addicts, by definition, okay, this is one hallmark trait, that every guy that Mark and I work with who struggle with compulsion, sexual or otherwise, is a lack of proactivity.
Yes.
The addicted brain is inherently by nature a reactive mindset, right? I in my office, I call it, we addicts, we perpetually wear a firefighter's helmet, right? We're going around, running around constantly. We've been doing it for so long, we don't even see it. We're running around, putting out fires, responding to things, right? We're constantly reacting to the things around us to try and keep everything, all the balls in motion, even if it's in super dysfunctional ways. And real recovery means moving and shifting towards wearing an architect's hat, planning out and looking forward and saying, what's the vision? Rather than just how do I make it through the day or manage today's crisis? What is the vision? And a big piece of that is missing in what I'm hearing, again, from just one side, admittedly, is a complete lack of proactivity. If one is really engaged in the recovery process, and if I really want to have things like intimacy with my partner, I have to start developing out and connecting with my prefrontal cortex again. And rather than just being reactive to things, I have to start looking ahead and saying, okay, this is a vision that I want, right? Because what guy, for example, to empathize a little bit with the addict, what guy doesn't want their wife to want to feel passionate about making love?
Of course.
Every partner wants that.
Yeah.
The problem is you're wanting that, but you're not doing the work to provide a scenario where anyone who is rationally grounded would ever feel that. You're lighting the ground on fire and saying, hey, just take a break here. This is safe. Right. And that's not a safe place. One of the ways we create safety is through proactively, not just being amenable to the things that a spouse suggests. It's what we talk about in here often. It's about actually picking up the sword and really fighting the battle and saying, how can I go to war for this today?
Yeah. And she expresses and she's asking, am I expecting too much too soon? Is their final question.
Yes.
And she says, I'm not sure how to handle this. He gets triggered so easily right now to any form of rejection. Listen to that word. Mm-hmm. So if she won't have sex with him on demand, he's rejected.
Yeah.
Wow. That is an entire volume of discussion right there. The fact that he considers that a rejection. Yeah. What that means is dependency. What that means is she has become one of his drugs of choice.
Absolutely.
If I can't indulge in this and have this, then I'm rejected. I take it personal.
I can't be okay.
I can't be okay unless you do this.
Yes.
And she says, I don't feel comfortable making love until certain things are in place that show faithfulness and transparency. And then he just interprets me not wanting to have sex as punishment and rejection. See, wow, look at that. See, and I love what you said, Steve. He's being reactive. I'll wait for whatever she's going to do, and then I will react. I'll take action when she pushes the issue. Instead of, wow, I'm rejected when she won't have sex with me. I'm having these feelings, right? I'm kind of feeling like a little boy. You know what? I think I need to start taking a look at this stuff. Maybe I need to be proactively seeking a recovery path. See, that you're right. He's in a place of reactivity, doing the minimum, getting by.
Well, just trying to see how close to the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, how close to the edge can I get, right? Instead of saying, I will do whatever it takes. Tell me what you need, and I will do the very best I can to.
How can I create safety for you?
Yeah.
Right? How can I lead out with that?
It's guys listening. If you're looking for what he's describing, I want my wife to want me. I want to be desired. I want to be pursued. When we make love, I want it to be mad, passionate love on both of our parts. If you want that, then here's what you have to be willing to do. You have to create the environment where that is possible.
Yes.
Not forced, not demanded, right? But the environment where it naturally unfolds.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. If you want a partner to want you, be it emotionally or physically or otherwise, you've got to pick up that sword and become that warrior, right? That's what we're all attracted to. We're attracted to man, woman, whatever. We're all attracted to somebody who's going to go to battle, who's going to have our back, right? Who's going to be there. If you're wanting to be desired, then fight for it, right?
And please
Go to
be
war.
aware of the addict mistake of thinking that sex is in its own little box.
It's not.
I want my wife to want me sexually, and it's not connected to anything else. No, it doesn't work that way.
No.
Right? It's a holistic desiring. It's got to be right in all the other areas in order for that to come together.
Yes. And even though this is a subject of past podcasts, the reality, guys, is Mark and I have been around the block a lot in our personal recovery. And we have tried to chase that non-committal sex because that's what porn and other forms of acting out kind of wired us to pursue.
Yes.
And we can tell you, hands down, and as we say this in a non-bragging way, we have looked at, viewed, and engaged in more sexual behaviors than we would ever want to admit. There is nothing at the bottom of that barrel. There's not. You will never find what you're looking for down there.
All
ever.
in wanting to have the hot, passionate sex without doing the work in any of the other areas.
It will not happen.
We tried to make that work for decades.
Yep.
And here we are talking on this podcast.
Hot passionate sex is not found at the end of that 50 great ways to have crazy banging sex that you find on any grocery store aisle in any popular, smut magazine of the day.
No.
Great, amazing, mind-blowing sex happens through what we talk about on here. And I know we got to run. We got to let you guys go. Please do join us on our Dare to Connect program. We've been up and running now for what, Mark, 3 or 4 months?
About 3.
Yeah, today's discussion was amazing. It was so good. We went, usually our sessions, we have 3 of them a week. They're 30 minutes. We went 45 today because this, among many other things, this is just kind of a small facet of today where we've got to interact with subscribers live in real time, answer questions, get feedback, clarify things. There's only so much we know that this podcast is helpful. We get a lot of great feedback for it, but there's only so much that can happen in 20 minutes on a non-interactive basis. It comes with a 2-week trial. Give it a try. You will not be disappointed. Give it a look at daretoconnectnow.com.
Yep, love to see you there, so we can
Absolutely.
really get into the depth of what you're facing.
For sure.
All right, everybody, we're signing off, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great week, everybody.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.